Hello and welcome. My name is Tom Lyons. I am the head of communications and content here at Gen2. I've also had the privilege and honor to be the host of all of the sessions for our Global AMC Summit 2026. Today, as our final session of the week, we're going to be taking a look at the GenTwo AMC Creator, which is a tool that we've developed that helps you explore your options and find the right partner to issue an AMC. But before we get into that, to me, I think it's important, at least the way I think about this session, it's not just meant to be an advertisement for our tool. I mean, we hope you like the tool and we hope you come to use it, but it's really, I think, a little bit more than that. If you were on the session on Tuesday with SRP, what we learned there is that the AMC market is really evolving in a lot of ways. It's growing. No one's quite sure how big it is, but estimates run between 1 and 2 trillion these days, but it's also getting more mature. So it's evolving on an infrastructure level in a large way, in ways that it hasn't really in the past. And one of the issues that was brought up during the SRP session was that transparency is a very important subject in the AMC market right now. It's something that's growing and something that clients and market participants really want. And infrastructure and transparency are also really a theme today because as we'll learn, one of the great motivations behind the AMC Creator was to help bring transparency to the market. And I think also, at least in my humble opinion, that the AMC Creator is a good example of the kind of infrastructure evolution that we're really starting to see here. So for this reason, we're going to focus not just solely on the product and the demo, but we will have a definite demo, but we're also going to talk a bit about our motivations, why we built it. We're going to talk a little bit about what we learned building it, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we see in the future for this kind of tooling among ourselves, but also in general in the market. So with that in mind, I would like to introduce our two guests today, two very good colleagues and friends of mine who are here to really take you into the deep dive. And Melanie, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. And hello, everyone. So my name is Melanie, and I'm a service designer at Gen2, being part of a service innovation team, which mainly cares about customer experience, looking at, well, a need-based development. And when I talk about need-based developments, it's really like listening to our customers. What is it they struggle with? What is it what they need in order to really enhance the whole experience they have at and with Gen2? That's it in a nutshell. And yeah, handing over to Lukas.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. My name is Lukas. I'm leading the business solutions offering at Gen2. And together with Melanie, we've been co-spearheading the AMC Create initiative, so from idea to execution, but also now in the entire life cycle management of the tool, so to say, so the continuous development. And I mainly cover the business part of it, so all our partnership conversations and the go-to-market of the tool. And for me, it's the first time actually in a Gen2 webinar, so I'm really excited where you take us today, Tom. And yeah, happy to talk to all of you today.
Well, so I'm glad you said that, and that wasn't even scripted. But it turns out the first I'm going to talk about is where I'm going to take you today. So here we are. So this is the agenda. We have 4 parts. We're going to talk about how the AMC Creator came to be, so transparency in the AMC market. We're going to have the demo, and then we're going to take out from the demo and go back and talk about sort of the future, the roadmap of the AMC Creator. And a lot of it has to do with what we learned about the market and how you guys can also help co-create it. And then we have a couple of takeaways from that. So we'll get back to the slides in a second, but I'd like to start off with some questions. Lukas, maybe with you, can you tell everybody what was the problem that you were trying to solve when we started working on this project?
Yeah, and I think in order to answer the question, it's important to understand where we sit with Gen2, right? So we are actually at the intersection of the portfolio managers, the partners, the broker custodian, banks, regulators, right? And we talk to all of them every single day. And that gives us a perspective that only a few players in the market have. And we see the friction from every angle, so to say, that you mentioned with transparency. So on the PM side, for example, we kept hearing the same frustrations over and over again. So people would come to us and say, hey, I actually know the AMC is the right tool, or the right vehicle for me for what I'm trying to do, but I generally don't know where to start, right? I can't figure out who to work with. I don't know what the fair pricing looks like. And the only way I can compare providers is by having 5 separate sales conversations with them. And it takes weeks, and obviously it's exhausting, right? And on the partner side, we were hearing something equally telling. So the providers in the space, so the banks, broker custodians, or issuance platforms, they all have a strong offering, right? Or multiple offerings, but there's no common language in the market. So every provider describes the capabilities a bit differently, structures the fees differently, bundles services differently. And that makes it generally hard for anyone on the buy side to compare because there is no shared framework, right? So even a great offering can get lost in translation. So that also reinforced our conviction that what the market needs isn't more sales conversations between parties, but it was actually, the market needs a more structured, transparent way, right? And lastly, from a regulatory point of view, right, we work with regulated entities across multiple jurisdictions, and the complexity of figuring out for which structures, what works for which structures, with which custodian, what are the constraints. That's not something a PM can easily navigate alone, right? Because we sit at the center of all of these relationships, we could help them and we could see the full pictures. And that's why we also thought, okay, we could see where the mismatches were, where the information gaps were. And we thought that a tool could actually add some value. And we've been hearing this for years in the sales calls, partner discussions, and in the feedbacks from our strategy managers. And as you mentioned, Tom, in the SRP report, right, transparency in the structured product market is a huge thing. And I think this everything combined is essentially confirms what we've been seeing for the in the past few years. So the timing is actually quite poetic, so that it kind of, as you said, the market is maturing and there are new tools are needed in order to navigate the market. And that's why we finally decided last year when we launched the AMC Creator in summer to stop talking about the gap and the transparency need and actually start closing this gap.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we can follow that up a bit, because it's one thing to get signals, it's one thing to get ideas, but how did you actually go from this ideas and from this feeling to the first version of the product?
Yeah, typically you would assume that it's a top-down initiative, but it actually grew a little bit out of internal conversations. So the kind of conversations that happens when someone says, why doesn't this exist somewhere, right? Or sales debriefs when you sit together at the lunch table with your sales colleagues and you overhear the same pain points over and over again. And at some point, enough people across the company actually had circled the same observation, so that it became obvious for us that there is something about that topic of transparency, right? And strategy managers definitely need a better way to orient themselves in this market. And then we also came back to our position in the market, that we are not at the center of everything, but that we are at a unique position, right, with the data and the overview. And then we thought, okay, we are actually the ones who can make it possible, right? But just also with the idea, we just didn't like build it in a vacuum or just in the ivory tower, so to say. So once we had this idea, we went back to a few key partners and said, hey, look, this is what we're thinking. Does it resonate with you? Because there's no purpose in building a tool if you don't have any partners actually tagging along. And then it actually resonated with them, and we asked them if you want to be part of it and shaping it, because there is no such tool out there. And the response was actually overwhelmingly positive. And our partners recognized the same thing that we did, that market lacked kind of a common framework in presenting and comparing AMC offers. And so we co-created this AMC Creator together. So the partners helped us understand what information matters most from their perspective, also from their sales experience, what a fair comparison should look like, and also how to present their offerings in a way that's accurate and useful for their target clients, right? So that collaboration was foundational. And it also means that the tool was not just a Gen2 view of how the market should be presented, but it was actually shaped with the market. So because we co-created it with the partners. You're muted, Tom. Oh, I can't hear you.
I muted Tom. There you go. That's better. Melanie, it sounds like you guys, I mean, from what I just heard, it sounds like you guys started with a big grand vision and everything was already worked out, and it was just a matter of getting it all done. Is that true, or am I completely wrong there? And in the meantime, I'm going to show people what the original tool looked like.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of discussions before, but I would say at that stage, we didn't have a grand vision for the tool itself, because honestly, I mean, the brief, we talked about it, and then the brief that was given was quite simple. It was more along the lines of build something with a few steps that leads to a result, maybe a questionnaire that takes what a PM knows about their situation, like, well, their strategy, their asset classes, like rough requirements really, and then in the end match it to the right provider or the right structure. And that was it in, yeah, in essence what we got as a brief. So nothing fancy, no big product roadmap or anything. And yeah, with that, we just started to get something out there and see if people actually use it, to be honest. I think the thing what was really interesting about it, though, was that this was the first project within GenTwo that was vibe coded. So it was literally vibe coded by myself. Well, I will say with the support of development teams whenever needed, because obviously they did the checks when it comes to security and stuff like that. But I think the beauty about it was we built it really fast and in the beginning deliberately scrappy, to be honest, because the MVP was a linear flow. You go through like 5 or 6 steps and you answer a couple of questions, and then in the end you got recommendations. So we were very intentional about not over engineering it, because we took it as a first idea, wanted to try and test and see how it works and mainly learn. So we launched it, pointed traffic at it, and then started really what happened, like watching what happened.
And what we're seeing here on the screen, right, is a screenshot from an earlier version, not the demo we're going to see later.
Yeah,
that's right. Okay.
That's the case.
So this is where we started from. The question is, what did you learn then once this went live?
Well, that's where the story kind of really shifts, because what happened with what we launched kind of surprised us, because the resonance was immediate and we had literally thousands of visitors coming through the tool within the first weeks. And that was far more than we had expected or anticipated. And at the same time, that volume was a gift, because that's exactly what we needed in order to learn. So we had real statistically meaningful data to work with. And yeah, we could exactly see where people dropped off, which steps created friction, which combination of answers led to submissions, or which ones, well, led to abandonment. And we could identify what we started kind of calling the highway. And the highway is kind of the optimal path through the tool that had the highest conversion. And we also could see the exits, like the moment where people left the journey. Yeah. And I would say the single biggest insight was that the linear flow which we had in this early version didn't really match how people think about this decision, or like creating an AMC, or building an AMC. Because I mean, it was really sequential. It was step 1, step 2, step 3, but the PMs, they don't have a neat checklist in their head. So their approach was much more exploratory, as we could see in their behavior on the tool. And they seemed like they wanted to toggle an assumption and see what changes in the tool, and then want to understand what's possible before they commit to any direction. So it was more like they want to play around and not just fill out a form in that sense.
Yeah, and it's actually, sorry. Good. Go ahead, Tom.
No, good. I was just going to say, so that I believe that led to a bit of a change of mindset on our end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we talked about this in the preparation of the session, right? So I think that was the point when we actually came back to one of the, I wouldn't say early visions of GenTwo, but like when we said it's as easy as booking a flight, right? And then that's when the travel analogy really clicked for us, because when we looked at our own behavior, when we were in similar situations, like we had a clear intent, but we didn't know where to start, right? And then we looked at the travel experience, and the reference was actually perfect, because when you're booking a trip, you actually don't know which airline, which route, which layover combination, what is your pricing, or let's say willingness to pay, let's put it that way. And actually you could just go on the platform like booking.com or Swoodoo. Now, just 2 examples, so we're not sponsored by them, but it's just like the experience that you get there. So you just type in from here to there, and then you just explore, right? You just adjust the dates, you toggle filters, you see prices shift in real time. So it's not really a funnel, it's an exploration space. And that became kind of the new vision for the AMC Creator. So we pivoted away from this static questionnaire. So as Melanie said, is 1, 2, 3 steps, to something that is much more dynamic and heuristic. So a tool where you can adjust parameters, see results shift in real time, and actually compare providers without feeling you're being funneled towards a single outcome. So you can, there are multiple options, right? And that shift from linear to dynamic was entirely driven by what we saw in the data and the feedback that we got from the users. And the beauty of it is really just, we embarked on a journey, but we didn't plan this pivot, or we didn't know where it would take us. So we just discovered basically the way forward.
Okay, maybe we can stake with that theme a little bit and get a bit deeper into it, because I find it very interesting. What is, and we all know Booking.com, and we all work with these kind of things all the time in our private lives, but what does it mean to be the Booking.com in the context of AMCs?
I mean, coming back to this intent, right? So I think the tool is built for the person who kind of knows enough to have a certain intent, but doesn't have yet the conviction on how should I do that, you know? So you want to launch an AMC, you might even know your strategy, your target assets, right? That's right within your realms, but you don't know which provider handles your asset classes best. You don't know what the fair pricing looks like, or what the fee stack could look like. And up until now, figuring all of that out meant weeks of back and forth with multiple providers, and none of whom had actually an incentive to give you a transparent comparison, because it's always kind of easier to say we pack our fees differently, so you have a competitive edge, right? And the AMC Creator lets you figure that out in one place on your own terms at your own pace. You can just open it and discover actually different combinations of asset classes and jurisdictions and see what makes sense for you, right? But at the same time, it's not a sales process and you're not making any commitment, you're just exploring. And I think the last point, that is really important to us, because we've seen that people often hesitate before submitting something in the tool. And they feel like clicking the button means they're locked in, but it actually doesn't. So we built the AMC Creator deliberately to make it feel like more like a calculator rather than a contract, right? So you're running scenarios, you're testing assumptions, and if you like what you see, then you can take the next step with one of the partners, but only if you're ready, right? And I think it's the best to actually show it, because we're talking about the AMC Creator now for 20 minutes, and I think it's the best point in time now to actually jump into the demo now with Melanie, because then it makes it, I think, a little bit more tangible what we mean with this dynamic process.
I couldn't agree more. So what we're going to do is I will, if I can stop my share, there we go. And Melanie, I turn it over to you to take us through the demo.
Thanks, Tom. But I want to lead you a bit into context again, because before I jump into the AMC Creator, I want you to imagine like being, for example, this portfolio manager, right? That is in the process of planning the next strategy. And as part of that, I mean, we know there's always the research involved about viability, feasibility, to check if the entire thing makes sense. And usually this research, as Lukas already said, that takes weeks. And having the AMC Creator exactly at that point in time helps you compare setups, filter down partners that are able to execute your strategy, and therefore save a lot of time. And let me start sharing my screen, because I want to show you, once you're in the process of doing exactly that, where you can find it. So can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. I can see there.
Okay. So as I said, when you're in this phase where you do feasibility, viability checks, you could actually easily go on the GenTwo website in the main navigation under Solutions and sub-navigation, launch your AMC Creator. This would bring you to this exact site, which tells you a bit about the partners that are currently on the tool. Process, well, a very slimmed down process, and then a few FAQs below. But for those that want to jump immediately into it, you just click Find Your Best Setup. And what happens is you'll be taken to the tool, and the first question we always ask is, what is the kind of asset class you want to build your AMC on? And well, in this case, I could select traditional, but what we allow as well is hybrid combinations. So you could also go for digital and alternative assets. For this demo, I stick now to traditional. As a next step, you'll be asked to answer questions about your regulatory status, because building an AMC means there needs to be an entity that is regulated. So let's say you are not regulated, but that means at least you need to have access to someone that is regulated. And let's say that is the case. And today, well, we are located in Belgium. That brings you then to the overview of the main tool. So what is important to mention here is, in the beginning, when you enter that tool, the pre-selection you see is literally, well, it is just one asset class, but based on the asset classes you selected in the first step. And since I chose traditional assets, what is selected for me here is, for example, stocks. But we can simply adjust that. I could, for example, add digital assets. And as you could see here, I can untick that again. But the moment I select digital assets, there is a change in the listing, because what happens is all these filters here on the side, let it be partner, issuer type, issuer domicile, maybe here I select Cayman C, that filters it even more down. These are determinants for what kind of partners I can see in the tool. And at the moment, we have two different journeys. And let me clear all. When I mean two different journeys, what that means is, let's say I'm interested in Swissquote and Bank Frick. So I select Swissquote and Bank Frick. And then I continue. And here you can see again the asset class, the selected partners. But if I'm not happy, for example, I could go back and edit the selection. But if I'm fine with that, what I would do, I would only enter my details and then submit the form. Because once you submit, you get a free consultation with our sales team to discuss the next options. And the other journey that we have, give me a second. And oh, sorry, one thing that I forgot to mention, which is super important. Obviously, what you can see here are the offerings based on issuer domicile, product fees, time to market, and vehicle structure. But there's way more in terms of information. So each and every card can be expanded with their offering details. So what we have in addition is a way more transparent pricing, because up here, product fees are just like it's one rough description, but what we have as well is, for example, different volume tiers that we introduced. So we have 1 to 20 million, 20 to 50, 50 to 100. And based on those volumes, the costs might change. As well, we have a partner tab, for example, which tells you more about the partner, about the location, where they're based. Also super important, where they regulated by. It tells you about the onboarding speed and the ISINs that are offered. Then the custody, and the tab with services is compared to the partner tab not as generic, because I mean, if you go to Swissquote down here again, you will see exactly the same partner facts, which kind of makes sense. But when it comes to services, it comes really down to the specific offering that you're on, and the same counts for the restrictions here. But coming back to the second journey then, because for those that are maybe more still exploring different partners, you can, as I said before, select one, multiple, doesn't matter. But then the ones that are already more into the weeds and want to see more and define more, we provide a journey that we call draft term sheet. So if you click on here, you will be asked to enter even more details, because here you can already determine, okay, so what is the currency that the product should be issued under? Then talking about fee structures, I mean, I'm just making up something here, hurdle rate, distribution to agent fee. You could continue to next. Then also here, you will be asked again about the specific asset classes that you want to include. You'll be asked about strategy goal and guidelines, which then pre-define a text that will be populated. You'll be asked about investment restrictions and also secondary market frequency. And once you filled that out, also here, similar as to the first journey, you'll be brought to a summary. You have the option to edit your choices because, if there's something you're not happy with, you can always go back. And then once you're happy, you can fill out all your details, submit. And the one difference compared to the first journey here also is that since we say draft your AMC term sheet, what you'll be given here is we'll send you a sample AMC term sheet once you submit this form. And in general, what I want to emphasize on as well is that no matter if you submit something and what kind of selections you make, this is not set in stone. So this tool is really, for you to explore, to maybe, make a few early selections, but you're not buying something at that stage. So it is really just for you to explore and see the possibilities of potential partners and setups, with the sole ambition to save you time in that research process when it comes to selecting a provider that fits your need.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Melanie. That was a really good overview of the tool as it is today. But if I'm not mistaken, guys, this is still early days in a lot of ways, right? So this is certainly not the tool that's going to be people are going to be coming to in the near future or over the midterm. So my question to you guys is, Lukas, I'll start with you. Where does this go next? What's the roadmap here?
Maybe a few things. So I think one thing that we've mentioned throughout the webinar now is I think it's continuous improvement of the experience itself. So we changed it drastically now in the beginning, but also like continuously now we look every week at the data, see where people actually get stuck, and we want to try to refine the interface, right? So that's not a one-time effort, just a kind of a permanent loop. We treat that the AMC Creator also like a living product, so it's not a finished one. And I think that's part of the mindset, part of the reason why this mindset works, especially with this tool, right? Because we kind of we're never done with it. So I think that's one thing. The second thing, also what we've seen from the data and also from conversations, is content and education. So the tool already does what it's supposed to do, right? So it lets you explore, compare, find the right setup. But what we try to build in the future is also like different approach paths around it. So how do you find actually into the AMC Creator? So if you come back to the travel analogy, so the AMC Creator is some sort of the runway on the airport, right? But people need a lot of guidance before they even get there, right? So and I think so we try to build content around the AMC itself. So what is an AMC, how fee structures work, what questions to ask, what distinguishes it from different structuring approaches. So we're creating content, articles, explainers, short formats that actually meet people where they are in their learning journey and actually can pinpoint them to the tool once they're ready. And I think lastly, the tool itself that's also something that is kind of already somehow implicit on the platform. So two directions. On the one hand, we're growing the partner network with international partners on the AMC Creator. Some of them are already in the pipeline as we speak. And obviously, the more providers and also, international providers we have on the platform, the more comprehensive and credible the comparison becomes for the users, and the more value the platform can also generate for everyone that is involved, right? And on the other hand, we're working toward enabling a full end-to-end AMC launch directly through the platform. As we saw with the draft your term sheet, today the AMC Creator helps you find the right setup and the right partner, and tomorrow we want to take this draft your term sheet also a step further and also push as much as we can into the execution layer, right? So that we have a kind of a seamless end-to-end journey. There are a lot of steps in between and a lot of open questions, so that's not something that we can expect in the next 2 weeks. But I think that's kind of the next frontier of this discovery tool that we get into the execution, like with the booking platform, right? That you actually can book it and actually charge a credit card, so to say.
Okay, cool. So we're getting towards the end of the program part of the program, and I believe we've got a set of takeaways that we want people to take away from this thing. And Lukas, I'll start with you. What are the 3 things that you think people should be taking away? And I will also put up a slide so people can read it.
Yeah, thanks. We discussed that before, right? So 3 key takeaways for the session. So I think number 1 is, so if you're a strategy manager, portfolio manager, and you're thinking about launching an AMC or just even exploring what is the right vehicle for you, so the AMC Creator is out there. It exists. It's free for you, and it's built exactly for that moment. So go on the AMC Creator and try it, basically. The second, if you're on the supply side, right? So if you're a bank, broker, custodian, or insurance platform, and you're not yet on the AMC Creator, you should know that the door is open. So we built this with our partners, and we're actively growing out the number of providers for the platform. So if that's interesting to you, come talk to us. You can reach out to me or to anyone in this at Gen2 basically, and will be routed to me, and then we can have a conversation around that. I think that is the first 2 that I would like to cover, and then maybe Melanie from your side, the last one, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the shout out to everyone in the room that this tool is not finished, and it will never be in that sense, because we keep learning. And as Lukas said, it is a living product. So we're constantly improving it based on real data, real feedback. So if you use it and something doesn't make sense, if you think something is missing or you have an opinion on whatever, we would really love to hear from you. And yeah, don't be shy. We're here. We're happy to talk to you, and it will just, help improve and help, I think, also build tools, not just for Gen2, but for the market, to make things easier and to really build stuff that is valuable and makes everybody's life easy out there.
Fantastic, guys. Well, great. Listen, thanks so much for taking us through this. It's really been I enjoyed it, and I hope the other people did. I'd like good. And was your first time? How does it feel?
Well, good. No, definitely. Good.
All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the Q&A part of the program, and we've got a couple of questions, and I'll read them out, and we'll see if we can answer them. The first one that came in, I'm going to take it actually. It's from Javier Mutal, who's works for one of our clients actually, who's an investment advisor for the portfolio manager of the AMC Jacobant Nachson, so if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which was created by Gen2 via private placement. He gives us the performance figures there. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that, so we'll get back to that in a session. I have a suggestion. He says, could Gen2 create on its website a ranking with the return and other specific financial data of the AMCs created by us, segmented by category, underlying assets, strategies, etc. It would be a way to help promote the AMCs and potential clients, and which will obviously increase AUM. So this is a very good question. I think it's tangential thoughts of what we're doing today, which is trying to bring transparency to the market. I have to give you a 2-sided answer to this. First of all, we thought about this question a lot. We want we're successful if our clients are successful. There's clear about that, and we'd like to help you, market or help with the distribution of the with the marketing of your products. However, our hands are tied in many ways. We are not a regulated entity. This is by design. We're infrastructure provider. We're a tool provider, and we have to be very, very careful. We can't do anything that that looks like solicitation and marketing. You know, there's a whole compliance jungle that has to do with that. That said, if you don't mind, we are doing certain things to try to help bring certain visibility to the products, because we do, you know, we've done 1,600, I'm getting onto 1,700 products. A lot of them are, I mean, they're all great. There's some fascinating things going on. I can't talk about performance, but if you don't mind me, I'm going to show you one thing that we do, which is a kind of a newish or an updated thing that that we've done in the past. If you can see my screen, we have developed a product spotlight service that we together. So what we do is we can take your term sheet if you like, and we can build this particular product spotlight, which goes up on our website, so it can be found. And it also, we do a product of the week, or we put on LinkedIn, you know, one of these products to show. And basically, it's a standard template which I can create from your term sheet, and it, you know, explains. It gives the name of the product, explains what it is, how does it work, what's the underlying asset. So we built a little bit using AI around that. Who's behind it? Who are the players? And then we explain what kind of instrument. Is it a tracker, an AMC, a CLN, or whatever? And if you're interested in this kind of thing and you're a client of ours, you can get in touch with me, tom.lyons@gen2.com, or in touch with your key account manager. And I can make a draft of this from your term sheet quite quickly, and then you can take a look at it, see if you like it, and if you do, we'll put it up on our product spotlight page, which looks like this, where all the spotlights are listed. So that's one of the things we do. We're thinking of other services that we can do to help support your marketing efforts. But again, we as Gen2 cannot do that. And if I can't put ISINs out there, I can't put performance figures out there. I can't put, you'll notice the spotlight and doesn't have, it'll mention all the partners, all the stakeholders in the product, but I cannot link to your website, because this starts to blur the line. So good question. The answer is yes and no, and I hope that was useful.
Yeah, maybe I can add sure. A little thing to that, especially in context of the AMC Creator, right? So we do get this request quite a lot, right? And as Tom said, we are successful if our clients are successful. And I think if we break it down, or if we basically dissect it to the underlying, let's say, or element of it, is like, how can we build trust? Because in the AMC Creator, right, these are just setup options. And obviously, if you're exploring, you also want to know what has been published with, like, how could we already help our clients with these partners to maybe build something. So I think the underlying thing is we build successful products for our clients, right? And we've been thinking about this element of trust a lot in context of the AMC Creator, as Tom just showed, also on our website. And we have some ideas how we can make such information accessible. But as also Tom said, we have some restrictions just because of the regulatory environment. But we are actually actively thinking about that, how we can make product data accessible for specific target groups. So I would also leave that with, or like kind of close that question here. What Tom showed here is definitely a good option, but also rest assured, we also know that this is a need that we recognize, and we already think about concepts around that.
Absolutely, and I think there's going to be some interesting things coming down the pipe in this regard. Cool. So next question up is, I believe, for most likely for you, Melanie, as the Vibe Coder in Chief here at Gen2. What tools did you use to build the AMC Creator?
I mean, when we started last year in summer, I guess it was around about the time where, yeah, vibe coding kind of became a thing. And I mean, in the beginning, we started using Lovable. So early prototypes, like I think when you remember the first linear journey, that was done still like with some mockups in Figma, but then from that we jumped super straight into Lovable. And nowadays I'm using mainly Cursor. Yeah, I would say Cursor is my go-to tool. Other people use Claude. Yeah, and I think, but that's more of a preference. I think these tools have also massively evolved over this 1 year that they're in existence now. And it's quite incredible what you can do, literally, like from, you know, if you think about all these functions, the whole logic that sits in the AMC Creator, the dependencies. I even, well, this is not part of the demo, but I even created or built vibe-coded CMS so that we can maintain all these offerings and put in data. I think that is quite astonishing. Yeah, but I think, yeah, to come back to your question, technology-wise, at the moment I'm using Cursor. That's my go-to tool. And but one caveat, not caveat, I think one important thing was that right from the beginning we had also our developers involved, just to make sure that, you know, whatever we develop here is compliant, like meets security standards, and this was always checked before we went actually live.
So it's like vibe coded, you can move fast yourself, but then have everything checked.
Yeah, 100%.
Make sure it's airtight. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
And especially as we want to connect, as I mentioned, kind of in the outlook, right? So our goal is to build this end-to-end journey. So it doesn't make sense to have isolated tools somewhere just vibe coded around the universe. So we deliberately also, we use the tools to rapidly kind of make tangible the ideas more tangible. But we also need to make sure that we stay close to our infrastructure, stay in close contact with our dev team, so that we can ensure that no matter where it goes, it's still pretty close to our infrastructure, so we can integrate it if we want to keep all kind of cards on the table, so to say.
Excellent. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
Anonymous question. I work for a broker. I'm interested to be listed in the AMC Creator. What do I need to do?
So I think the first thing to do is reach out to me. So as I said before, so we are actively looking for new partners, and we evaluate each kind of partnership then on a case-by-case basis, because it always needs to work out for both sides. But so we can have a first conversation with the team here, and then what we put together is actually a comprehensive onboarding kit. So once we have a first conversation around what the best option is, we have an onboarding kit that we can hand over, where you can define all the details, how you want it to be displayed, what are the fees, services, all the information basically that Melanie showed before can be defined by you. So it doesn't actually take too much. There are no technical integrations. It's basically just a business decision and some alignment between us and you. So happy to reach out there.
Great. So here's one for you, Melanie. If I'm interested in getting involved in co-creating and involved in your research and sort of being, you know, helping to shape this particular product, and in maybe in ways some of the infrastructure around AMC's, you know, what do I need to do to participate? How does that work?
I think, well, also here, reach out to me. I'm not sure, Tom, whether in the end of the AMC Summit you share also contacts maybe, but
yes,
that would be definitely, yeah, the first thing. Just reach out to me, and we have, obviously we work in quarters, and we have ongoing projects. So that means probably whenever it fits, I would then early on reach back out to you, see when and how far you're available, and yeah, see what we can do. Sometimes it is merely a matter of, let's say, me having a couple of questions. So it will be more interview based, because I need to understand certain things from a process perspective better. Other times I will have a prototype where I show early features, early developments that you could help shape together, provide opinions. And well, it can be also a mix of both, to be honest. But it doesn't have to be as structured. I think there's always a case if you have immediate feedback, that doesn't have to be super formal, right? Always just drop me an email, and that is enough.
And also, okay. I think what is important, we're constantly collecting user feedback. So from, I would say, rather portfolio managers, strategy managers, right? The people who use the tool. But then also together with our partners, we, as we said before in the beginning, right? We co-create this tool. So every new development, every new idea that we have for the direction of the tool, we have our partners as sparring partners, right? So that, coming back to the second question, if you want to become a partner, you're definitely in the pole position to kind of shape into what direction the tool can go, how it can look like. I'm not saying you have the ultimate decision power as a partner, but it's always kind of a, I would say, like finding the balance of requirements and feedbacks, but then you definitely are at the forefront of the new developments, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really gives the people out there the chance to shape whatever we're building.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Okay, great, guys. So it looks like we have one more question. I'll put it out to the both of you. Is this tool only for Switzerland?
No, actually not. So maybe the parts that we currently have listed are primarily centered around the Swiss market, but also they are international companies and partners, so to say, anyways. But what we also see from the traffic data that we get from the submissions, it's actually quite a global tool. So we already have visitors from all the continents checking out the offer. Obviously, there are always a lot of regulatory questions, and when it comes to certain details. But no, it's not just a tool for Switzerland. It's definitely a global tool, so to say.
Okay,
Or anything to add from your side, Melanie? Or
no, 100%. I mean,
yeah.
literally based on what we've seen, you know, the requests that came in. I mean, yeah, the data speaks for itself.
And that's definitely one of the things we learned during the week, right? Was the let's call it the globalization of AMC as a one of the fastest growing structured product types out there, if not the fastest growing. So we saw apparently a lot of interest in Latin America. We're seeing actually in Europe, obviously in Asia, and if you look at the S&P report or you talk to people, it's growing literally by leaps and bounds. And then there's a lot of reasons, as we also learned this week, the AMC has a lot of advantages for in terms of cost, in terms of flexibility. And I think what we learned today is that it's also really, we're getting the tooling that matches that. We're getting the transparency. And as they say about AI, same here, the AMC tooling you see today is the worst it's ever going to be, because it's just going to get better and better and better. And with that, I'd like to close for today. Again, just repeat, we will be posting the videos from all of the sessions, hopefully next week. I'm working on a report, which is going to report on, sort of summarize everything we learned during the week. If you have signed up for a session, you'll get a copy of this report as well. We'll be sending contact information, so where you can help, talk to Melanie or talk to Lukas or talk to myself or others about what happened. We'll probably also send some surveys out to see if you liked it. I hope you did. We had 50, almost 60 people here today. Most of them stayed to the end. It's been quite a week, and I'd like to thank you, Melanie, thank you, Lukas, and thank all of you who have dialed in over the whole course of the week. It's been great, and hope to see you again soon. So goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, Tom, for moderating. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.